And could there be more planets in our solar system, Martha? Some scientists now say yes. British and Spanish astronomers say that there may be at least 2 more planets hiding behind Pluto, which still doesn't count as a planet, by the way. Ripped off. Mike Massimino is a former NASA astronaut and professor of engineering at Columbia University. How are you, sir? What's it matter?
Well, if this would be a major discovery, if we can find that if there actually are more planets in our solar system, it would be a major find. Would it affect our daily life? Maybe not so much, but certainly we have to rewrite a few of the astronomy books.
I got you. So I always thought there were 9 planets.
That's what we learned. That's what we learned when we were kids.
I'm wrong. Now, what's the deal?
When we were kids, it was 9. Then there was a controversy a few years ago. They said, no, there's only 8, and now there may be some more out there. So it just goes to show you, we keep finding more and more stuff.
And Pluto's not living up. Now, listen.
Yep.
How do they go about determining there's another planet out there? How do we find that? How do we locate it?
This is what I find to be most interesting. You know, as an astronaut, I got to work on Hubble. But I was like the repairman. I don't look through the telescope, but we talk to these astronomers how they use a device like the Hubble Space Telescope, or how these guys made their discovery. They look for evidence. They find things and they don't know why they're seeing this evidence. So what they found, there's a bunch of rocks out beyond Pluto, way out there in our solar system, that were being disturbed more or less by gravity. Their pattern was not as it normally would be. Naturally occur if they were just those objects floating around. So they see something else pulling on them and disturbing the orbit, and they don't know what that is. So the theory that they have is that there's more planets, really big ones, way far away.
So it's based on,
the solar system.
It's possible they have not even seen these planets.
Yeah, I don't think they have. In fact, there's the only evidence that I'm aware of that I've read about here is that it's a gravitational attraction, and the only way, one of the ways that they would explain this is to say that there's other planets out there. If you know, with the Hubble Space Telescope, dark energy and dark matter, and this is at the Intrepid Museum now. They have the Hubble at 25 exhibiting. You see some of the stuff. They talk about things like gravitational lensing. They can, which means they can look on a lens. There's a picture of this in the museum where you can see the bending of light. And so the light can actually bend, and they can measure the bending of light. And they would say, well, what matter is around here that's causing that bend in the light? And then he said, well, there's got to be so much matter, but they can only recognize a portion of the matter. And that's why they come up with dark matter. So there's more stuff out there than we can account for. We can measure gravitation. Or the possibility that it's emitting light, right? Or it's sending light back, and that's how you would locate it. Right. So
it would reflect the light of the sun.
Yeah, but they don't know what this stuff is. So they call it dark matter, for example. In this case, what their hunch is that it's a planet that's out there that's causing this gravitational
Are you going to be okay with this?
Yeah, I think this is cool. I think what it shows you is, you think you know something and you don't. We really don't know what's going on. You know, dark matter, dark energy, we only can recognize like 10% of the energy in the universe, 10% of them. We don't know what the heck is going on out there. Now, very exciting stuff.
And quickly, when you were growing up, you memorized the planets in a very peculiar way. And what was that again?
It was my very educated mother just served us 9 pizza pies.
She did.
And each one of those words, that gives you, you start with Mercury, Venus, or right there. And we're going to have to update that. We got to come up with names, too. I don't know what they're going to do. So
to make more pizza.
It's coming. It's going to hit us. It's going to hit us hard. And it's going to be 200-mile-an-hour winds. And there's going to be massive tidal waves and earthquakes.
They claim, according to special operations, 4-star generals, that literally it causes a person to go to pieces.
I'll throw 2017 out, and you can take that to the bank.
What should give us hope that this is a turning point? That this is the moment we finally determined we would save our planet.
You're doomed. So to hell with it. Enjoy the ride. I tell people who are interested in listening.
Wait, whoa! What the f***?
Wise men said, just walk this way to the dawn of the light. Wind will blow into your face as the years pass you by.
We all call it Planet X or Nibiru, but it is a dwarf star. It's either a red dwarf or brown dwarf star. Now, the object, which is clearly Planet X by deductive logic and process of elimination, is therefore now between Mars and Jupiter. It's not in the outer reaches of the solar system. It can clearly be seen, especially from the southern hemisphere.
The implications and the side effects of what might happen to us here on Earth is pretty scary. We're going to get into some of that. Now, one of the cool things that David discusses with us here is instead of having to just take his word for it, he gives you coordinates on where you can actually see it for yourself. Mid-2017, he says we're going to see an eclipse with Nibiru. He has been able to take his background and transition it into research on Planet X, and has recently compiled an awesome book with a treasure trove of information. David, how the heck are you?
Very good tonight, sir. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic. I appreciate you coming on here with us. I know that you had reached out to us a few weeks ago. You've got a really cool book coming up here that's going to break everything down with Nibiru. You know, let's talk about what you do.
Well, the way I got into it, I've always believed in following the money. About 5 years ago, I got into some research on the Pentagon black budget. And I don't know if you recall, but you probably do, that the day before 9/11, Don Rumsfeld announced at a Pentagon news conference that the agency was 2.2 trillion short. Money was simply missing, 2.2, not billion, but trillion. So having worked for a period of time at the Pentagon, I realized this was most likely black budget funds. And I did some investigation, and I ran across a couple of areas, basically the deep underground military base research done by Jesse Ventura, done by Phil Schneider, done by other personalities. And I realized, of course, that's likely the source of the lost money. It's black budget ops, and it's being spent. And why is it being spent in terms of these type of bases? So that's how my curiosity was picked, you might say. These bases, I understand, are built away primarily from geologic tectonic areas, but again, when Planet X passes, you're going to have new geotectonic faults established when you have force 11, 12, 13, 14 earthquakes. So I don't know how safe they're going to be. It could be a lost investment for those people. In any case, that was my basic introduction about 5 years ago, and then I got into the science of the topic. My understanding, and this is partly from Phil Schneider, I know he worked 11 years at Groom Lake Area 51. He says the black budget varies between 0.2 trillion and 1.2 trillion per year. I'm not sure when the inception started. It was absolutely going on in the late 70s and 80s. He says a couple of dozen of these may be reasonable for protection. I agree, nuclear protection. But the question is, why do we have over 130 of these? That doesn't really make any sense unless, obviously, Planet X is absolutely a fact, which it is.
Well, so, 4 years ago, I remember reading an article on Yahoo News that claimed eventually people are going to be able to look up in the sky and they're going to see what looks like a second sun, but really it's a giant sun that exploded. I think they said it was Betelgeuse or something like that. So in my mind, when I read stuff like that in the news, I think it's, the forces behind the scenes or whoever's kind of orchestrating the media prepping people, subconsciously getting them ready for this type of event. First, it's just an explosion that looks like a sun, and then, hey, oh, it is a sun. So, do you have any physical evidence, like pictures that you can say without a shadow of a doubt, or files or white papers?
Yes, I do. In fact, there's some very good videos on the internet itself that are good photographic analysis. There's one called Multiple Suns Rise Over Halifax, Nova Scotia. Those are the keywords that a person would enter on YouTube to read it or view it. And you can see the sun. And then at the 3 o'clock position, you have Planet X. To the right of Planet X, you have a separate lens flare. Now, that doesn't reflect the lens flare, of course, in the water below, but Planet X is generating its own light, and you can see its reflection, therefore, in the water below. Next, I think a fog bank moves in, and it obscures the sun, but Planet X is still visible. A lens flare cannot do this. Now, that's one good example of something they could simply look up themselves on YouTube. There's also some good Davis Station South Pole videos out there. And there's, in my book, which is Planet X, the arrival in 2017 by David Mead on Amazon. I've done a video, it's on page 15 or 16 or so of the book, and I have a section called Photographic Analysis of Planet X, and I study one video which another analyst did an extensive study on. And let me just sort of explain what happened. A fellow named Glenn Vaughn on April 11th, 2015, was flying down the Pacific side of Central America. He's a professor, an ex-professor at California University. He took a 20 megapixel raw file with a Sony digital camera, and he confirmed the report by sending it in to a particular analyst for review. He took it through an aircraft window. Now, an analysis of the metadata indicated it was taken at 240 dpi, very high resolution, and the metadata further showed the date, the time, the GPS coordinates. I think it was a Sony DSC HX50V camera. In any case, using Starry Night Professional version, the video, which is referenced in my book and which is on YouTube, did a field of view analysis, and he determined Mercury is above, in other words, superior conjunction with the Sun, and the object in the field of view, therefore, is not Mercury. Mercury does not have wings, as does this object, and Mercury does not have the brightness or contrast of the unknown object. Now, the analyst also performed a gamma test on a paint program. Gamma testing shows if an object is hot or cold. Hot objects generate, of course, their own light like our Sun. A lens flare would be a cold object. They read direct light, they don't generate it. So he started with a gamma of 1, reducing it by steps. At point 10, the gamma illustrates stark differences. At point 01, he shows the hottest, brightest objects on the video. He then reduced brightness to a value, I think, of -3 in contrast to +2. The hot objects fade in together, proving they're genuine. Then he ran a luminance test to determine the intensity of the object, and he determined it was behind the Sun, not a reflection. There are actually wings on the object, which is clearly behind the Sun. Now, he stated this is deeply disturbing. The reason is that gas tails of comets follow solar winds, and they're not visible until the comet's orbit is inside of Jupiter, at which point, normally the luminosity at that point of the Sun makes the tails of the comet or the planet visible. Of course, Planet X, we all call it Planet X or Nibiru, but it is a dwarf star. It's either a red dwarf or a brown dwarf star. Now, the object, which is clearly Planet X by deductive logic and process elimination, is therefore now between Mars and Jupiter. It's not in the outer reaches of the solar system. It can clearly be seen, especially from the southern hemisphere. Now, as of April 2015, therefore, the date of that video and the analysis, Nibiru is close enough to the Sun so that the Sun's light is reflected to the tail, making it appearing like wings. And there's one other quick comment I'd make, because actually that video had two parts. The second part was a lady who lives near where I do, Sanibel Island, Florida, Melissa Huffman. Now, you can look at this video itself on YouTube. I think it has more or less gone viral, and nearly 1 million people have looked at it. And this is a 2015 video. The object is very interesting. She pans the sky and shows the object and then the moon. Now, it's clearly a planet visible just north of the Sun. Now, using stellarium and knowing the moon phases, comparing it to her video on the moon, you can go to the derived date, take away the atmosphere and the ocean, and you can determine the relationship of the stars to the horizon. So to determine the date, you basically just use moon charts, and the moon is well below the horizon in all dates after September 26, 2015. Therefore, the video was taken earlier. Now, September 2015 moon phases give us a comparable to the moon in the video. And if you look at the moon phases diagram to the actual picture of the moon, it has to have been photographed on September 23, 2015, based on moon phasing. Now, on that date, Mercury in stellarium is very dim, somewhat above the horizon. Also, I believe it's in a different location than the unknown object. All other planets are below the horizon. The video, therefore, conclusively and plainly shows an unidentified planet, or dwarf star, Planet X, of some significant magnitude quite clearly. So I can reach no other conclusion, and the analyst did himself, than this is a rare photo from this hemisphere of Planet X approaching us.
Wow. You know, and there's also speculation now, and I hadn't heard this until about a year ago, that not only is Planet X going to come our way, this dwarf star, but also a bunch of planets with it, like it's bringing in its own solar system. Is there evidence or truth to that?
Right. There's a number of videos there. I've seen some real good ones from the South Pole Telescope, and they indicate that there are a variety of moons around this. It's basically, as you say, it's its own solar system. A lot of people don't realize this, but binary, what we've got in our solar system here is obviously a binary twin. 76%, this is a fact, of all stars are binary twins. In fact, 16% are trinary twins. There are 3 suns, but ours has a binary companion, and it comes under the name of Planet X, Nibiru, and so forth, Nemesis. There are various names to it. But ours has a binary twin, and it's very common. It's extremely common, and it's basically what is approaching us. And apparently, from all descriptions, indications, reports, insider reports, photographs, and other sources of human and signal intelligence, it contains 5 to 7 moons around it. So it's a solar system approaching our solar system, which makes it extremely dangerous. The red dragon of Revelation 12 may well be, and I believe rather obviously is, Planet X, as it's referred to in an earlier chapter of Revelation, I think Revelation chapter 8, in a similar manner. A colleague of mine at the university, one university in the western U.S., brought up a very interesting point, perhaps to cover up to my intention. Here it is. Basically, he said the areas of the dragon anomaly have been covered or patched up by Google Sky in the past. But one of the ways to actually see what is behind this patched out area is to use a program called Skyview by NASA. Skyview, what that is, it's a virtual observatory on the net. It generates images of any part of the sky from wavelengths of all regimes, radio to gamma. You just filter it. Now, when you view these images in various filters, you can see the actual color of this anomaly in Virgo is red, and it does look very menacing, as it appears to have a face like a dragon with 2 profound eyes. It's very intriguing and quite strange. Now, just for your listeners, I'll provide very briefly the right ascension and declination if they want to go to Skyview. And here it is. Just cut and paste this coordinate. Here's the right ascension, 13 hours, 50 minutes, 44 seconds. Here's the declination, and that would be minus 8 hours, 13 minutes and 59.7 seconds. So right ascension is the celestial equivalent of longitude, and in the sky, latitude is called declination. So you just enter those coordinates, and then on Skyview you just choose the Iris 100 micron telescope setting, and there you are. You've never seen an object quite like this one. Now, the sign itself might be a sweeping parenthetic of that entire biblical 70th week of Daniel, which is a key to solving the most complex cryptogram in existence, the book of the Apocalypse. As to what it is, the astronomical scientific community, I think, is keeping a very low profile. And the question is, why did they ever cover it up to begin with?
Well, and not only that, if we could get into some of the more scientific stuff as well.
Because it's so close now, it's different. When it was first observed, probably the first time it was actually observed, it was observed in the infrared spectrum in 1983 by a orbiting Earth satellite telescope called the Infrared Astronomical Satellite. And this is when all those articles appeared in the Washington Post and the New York Times and so forth. And that's when, right before blackout occurred, there were some articles over a 6 to 12 month period of time when it was pretty much spoken freely of. And then all of a sudden, I think they realized the seriousness of the matter, and they went ahead and produced a blackout. Now, remember this, the blue daytime sky is going to hide Planet X until it eclipses the sun. But there is going to be a full disk solar eclipse right after September 23rd, 2017. This occurs, if you look at moon charts, on October 5th, 2017. And what happens, of course, during a full disk solar eclipse is the sky turns black, and that will reveal at that point, that week, in my opinion, the week of October 5th to 12th, according, if the book of Revelation is true, because this ties in perfectly with it, that could well be the exact month that we can first see it with the naked eye. So, in my opinion, combined with a predictive computer-generated astronomical model, the Bible, the book of Revelation, the Apocalypse, tells us that the red dragon, or Planet X, or Nibiru, appears after September 23rd, 17, but it has to appear before October 11th, 2017. At that date, October 11th, 2017, the sign in Virgo, the woman Virgo, will no longer be, quote, pregnant. Then the red dragon, or Planet X, therefore must make it an appearance before October 11th. So that seems to be a cutoff date. Jupiter, which is known as the planet or the star of the Messiah, exits Virgo, the Virgin, on October 11th after having spent, I believe, 301 days or about 42 weeks in the, quote, womb region of that constellation. And again, after that point, the woman will no longer be pregnant. So that gives us a very narrow window, just to use the Book of Revelation or the Apocalypse as sort of an intel briefing. And the great sign of the woman, as described in Revelation 12, 1-2, forms and lasts for a few hours. And according, again, to astronomical models, this sign has never before occurred in human history. It will occur once on September 23rd, 27. It will never occur again. And I believe it places us right at the time frame from that analysis of the Planet X approach to the Earth. I would prepare on or before the fall of 2017. I would conduct emergency preparedness. Of course, you want to be spiritually ready. You want to have a clear conscience and all that, but you need to do physical preparations as well. I think survival gear, emergency food, that sort of thing. And the reason is that, again, all this while you're going to get increasing levels of disinformation from the mass media until it's actually there. And then they're going to say, whoops, we didn't have any notice, we don't know what happened, and so forth. And they're going to run and hide in what they've already established. But, you know, the public is there and the public has to fend for itself. This global warming, as you've heard, I'm sure, is a cover story. The Earth is heating up from the core outward because of the approach of Planet X. During the 20th century, I think there were 35 volcanic eruptions in a typical year. Now there are more than 35 of these every single day. So basically, when X approaches, that week you see it in the sky, let's say it's October of 2017, you know, for purposes of discussion, at that point, it's not going to actually collide, I don't believe, with the Earth. The Earth is only 8,000 miles in diameter. It may pass 5, 10, 15 million miles away, but it has a very high magnetic attraction. It's going to have a gravitronic effect. It's going to cause the shifting of the Earth's crust. It's going to cause major volcanic activity. It's going to cause tidal waves. And when a pole shift happens, the ocean literally comes up out of its basin. So you're going to have major weather changes, seismic activity, and volcanic eruptions. Probably at that point, Yellowstone, the Yellowstone super caldera, will likely erupt. That could affect up to a third of the United States, cover it with ash.
Well, let me jump in here for a second. I'm glad you brought that up because you can clearly tell a difference now with how hot the sun is. I mean, even if you look at the same temperature, you know, 75 degrees now versus 75 degrees 10 years ago, although it's the same temperature, the sun on your skin even, there's just more heat there.
If you go to the book of Revelation, the Revelation indicates that the sun is going to be hotter at that time frame. Now, the EMP effect, Planet X has a massive tail. It's fantastically charged. It's magnetic. The tail has moons and rocks in it. Now, this can down aircraft and satellite when it passes. It can affect the electrical grid. Now, of course, NASA, JPL, and the other disinformation sources ignore this data. But here are the facts. The Earth has a nickel and iron core. Now, this generates its magnetic field. However, the magnetosphere has large holes in it. The magnetosphere is a static shield. Now, under routine solar conditions, it protects the Earth from coronal mass ejections. But when Planet X arrives, we're no longer under routine solar conditions. Now, you know that the magnetic poles have been shifting towards Russia at maybe 40 miles an hour a year. But when Planet X arrives, the physical poles will shift. Now, this will create some hyper-earthquakes, tsunamis, and the shifting of land masses. So if you want to look at a few different states, one thing people can do to protect themselves is simply be in the right location when it happens. Now, there's a few states to avoid. And California is highly dangerous. It's composed of rock plates. Now, when rock is compressed, it breaks. And you'll see the crumbling of rock, of course, as this mass goes upwards. Now, the West Coast will have major catastrophic changes, synergistic proportions, tidal waves, high hurricane force winds, earthquakes on the fault lines, volcanic activity over the magma. So it's highly dangerous. And I think the long-term danger is in riding out the shifts for those who are living near the boundaries of plates. Now, cities without mountains as a backdrop can just be washed out to sea. You'll have broken gas and water lines. San Francisco, it's on the San Andreas and other fault lines. A lot of the population will be trapped. Water will overflow the city. Survival will be minimal. California is not a good bet. Now, the area around Arizona, on the other hand, the Hoover Dam probably won't survive because of earthquake activity. And you'll have rivers flooding, and areas within rivers should probably be avoided. But you look at Phoenix and some of these main cities. Arizona has withstood many a pole shift. The area around Tucson is safe. Florida is another very dangerous state. Its highest elevation is 105 meters in the Panhandle. And but as for Central and South Florida and the Keys, these parts can be devastated by a tide of water. Colorado, for example, is a safe area. The domestic division of the CIA is relocating to Colorado. That should give viewers many clues right there. And of course, one of the safest parts of the country is the Ozarks, northern Arkansas, southern Missouri, average elevation close to 1,000 feet, self-sufficient water supply, agricultural land. They'll do well. They're also isolated from large metropolitan areas, and they're well enough inland to avoid flooding through, tidal waves. So it's a part of the preparation is probably geographic, but I would expect when it hits, when you see this object in the sky, you'll have 1 to 2 days to accumulate all of the emergency food and water you can. I would accumulate at least a 3-month supply. I would highly recommend people educate themselves, understand the whole picture, and probably take action at that point.
Wise men said, just walk this way to the dawn of the light. Wind will blow into your face as the years pass you by.
Unless you are willing to give it your best effort. So here goes. If you were running the world during these trying times, and you knew that events were on the horizon which would forever alter the entire planetary civilization, would you want the global mainstream media telling everyone? If those earth-shattering events were as unstoppable as they were fateful, would you disseminate this information? If you told them what was coming, what then would the 7 billion plus people who reside on planet Earth do the next day? That is, after you tell them that their world is about to come to an end. Will they still go to work? Will they continue to spend money? Will many of them even want to get out of bed again after they hear what is coming? Herein lies the challenge that is faced by the elite, those who control our way of life on this planet. Bear in mind that they know exactly what is around the corner. Their strategically located observatories and high-powered telescopes give them access to scientific data and astronomical phenomena which is so compelling that they feel they have no alternative but to distract us and deceive us and divert our attention. Remember, there is one thing more than anything else which they fear. That is uncontrolled chaos. They realize that real mayhem in the streets will not treat them well. Therefore, immediate social pandemonium is their greatest worry. Unpredictable political unrest strikes fear in each of them. Uncontrollable financial instability will only serve to inhibit their control over the masses. The time is ticking away when their control over each of us begins slipping away. Now, they may have their plans in order, but their ability to control our minds will have far less influence than what they were once accustomed to. Their deep underground bunkers may not be in the most protected areas that they once thought. Their experiments with time travel and interstellar travel, wormholes and parallel universes, blank slate technology and invisibility cloaking have already proved disastrous, as this video clip suggests.
If images can move back and forth across time, maybe people and objects could time travel too. Paranormal investigators say time travel has already happened. They claim that a U.S. Navy destroyer was sent through time during World War II. In a secret experiment in the Philadelphia Navy Yard, so the story goes, a destroyer escort vessel like this one was made invisible. Its name, the USS Eldridge. The intention was to produce a radar cloaking device, but when the test began, there were very unexpected results. The date was October 1943.
October 1943, their final and most disastrous test, they applied power to the ship. The ship disappeared, enveloped in a green fog. The fog then subsided and the ship itself was gone. The Navy ordered the power to be turned off. The power was cut to the ship. The ship didn't come back. Moments later it was spotted or reportedly seen in New Folk Harbor, hundreds of kilometers from Philadelphia where it was moments before.
The effect on the crew of the Eldridge was traumatic, as Navy officers were supposed to have found as they boarded the ship.
When they got to the ship, they found that the crew was visibly disoriented, some members were vomiting, and most bizarre yet, there's stories of men actually fused to the metal in the deck, still alive.
The U.S. Navy denies the whole incident ever took place. The only witnesses to come forward have been figures of controversy. And investigators have an explanation for why the unfortunate crew were unable to talk.
After the experiment, the men were quarantined for a number of months in a naval hospital, where eventually they were discharged mentally unfit for duty. So in case the men were to talk about the experiment or any fantastic stories, the Navy could easily say, well, they're insane. We have the papers to prove it.
But the big question these days that has the undivided attention of so many individuals is the notion or the belief that something lurks within our solar system. In my video entitled The Nibiru Planet X System and its Impact on Our Solar System, we presented a short video clip which was published many years ago called Hercolubus is Coming, which documented the professed statements of Carlos Munoz Ferrara regarding Nibiru, the planet of the crossing. He was a highly intuitive and gifted astronomer and seismologist whose findings cannot be ignored. Carlos Ferrara predicted with extraordinary accuracy numerous earthquakes in South America during the last century. He did this by making direct correlations between specific astronomical phenomena and various catastrophic earthquakes and volcanic eruptions. His most significant prediction regards the future arrival of a great comet planet. Now, for those who did not watch my recent video, I would highly recommend that you watch it when you have an opportunity. But Ferrara calls it a comet planet because it has the size of a planet, and it has also the speed and the elliptical orbit of a comet. Whether you believe or not what this video portrays is not that important. What matters is that there have been numerous prognostications of this nature over millennia, which simply can no longer be ignored in the face of such pervasive and compelling evidence. So you will say, what kind of evidence? Okay, I'm going to show you. But before we go there, it's important to point out that Latin America has produced other gifted visionaries, just like Carlos Ferrara. Here are three of those individuals who have independently referred to the future happenings described by Carlos Ferrara. Mind you that their visions and scientific observations came to fruition long before the topic of Planet X or a binary star system became a conversation of great interest across the internet and the social media outlets. V.M. Rabolu, who was born in Tolima, Colombia, in 1998 he wrote Hercolubus, or Red Planet, based on his direct and conscious experience. Rabolu described the terrible events that will happen on our planet in the short term and explains the path that the human being can follow in order to achieve a deep transformation. Hercolubus, a planet so called by the sages of antiquity, is approaching our solar system and is the cause of great concern for those who know about such cosmic phenomena. In our former encounter, Hercolubus put an end to the Atlantean civilization. These facts are duly related through the universal floods of different religions and cultures. The consequence of the very close proximity of Hercolubus will be upheaval in all corners of our planet. Benjamin Solari Paravicini was born in Buenos Aires, Argentina. He is considered the great Argentinian prophet, who was also nicknamed the South American Nostradamus. Decades ago, he wrote, "The hour of hours will arrive, and in its darkness the crash of the big planet will be received. The earth will be reversed. Everything will fail." Samuel Weir was born as Victor Manuel Gomez Rodriguez in Bogota, Colombia. Samuel Weir, the great Gnostic master who gave numerous lectures in Mexico during the 70s, talked about Hercolubus and explained that in the times of the end, it would approach the Earth. Due to its great electromagnetic power, he said it would destabilize the Earth's crust, causing huge earthquakes, tidal waves, volcanic eruptions, and natural disasters. Hercolubus would have approached our solar system in former occasions to unleash cataclysms that wiped out the Lemurian and the Atlantean civilizations. Now, he said, it would come again to end our civilization and allow a new era to begin. Have you ever considered why the Vatican owns and operates an observatory outside of Safford, Arizona? Not only does the Vatican operate the Vatican Advanced Technology Telescope at Mount Graham International Observatory, which is located in southeast Arizona's Pinalino Mountains, they also share the same facility with the Large Binocular Telescope Observatory. The Vatican Advanced Technology Telescope, also known as the VATT, is a 1.8 meter Gregorian telescope observing in the optical and the infrared. So why infrared? Because Planet X is often referred to as a brown dwarf, which has cooled down so much that it can only be detected in this range of light frequency. Construction of the MGIO began in 1989. It currently operates and maintains facilities for 3 scientific organizations. The first 2 telescopes, the Vatican Advanced Technology Telescope and the Heinrich Hertz Submillimeter Telescope, began operations in 1993. The Large Binocular Telescope, one of the world's largest and most powerful telescopes, began operations using mirrors independently in 2004, with joint operations between the 2 mirrors beginning in 2008. Now, this is according to Wikipedia, the Mount Graham International Observatory information site. So that brings us to the Vatican Secret Archives. Now, the archives has probably more volumes of original documents in the form of scriptural references, as well as historical records produced by the ancients, than any other library on earth. The Roman Catholic Church is further informed about the future of humanity from the numerous Marian apparitions which have occurred around the world over the past 200 years. It is well known in certain circles that many of the prophecies which were given to mostly children have never been released by the church hierarchy because of the dire content. Why might this be the case? Because those controllers of information know that such doses of reality are simply too much for the masses to bear. Of course, they have deliberately leaked this and that information over many decades so that those who have ears to hear will receive the messages they are meant to. The Vatican is also well aware of the St. Malachi's prophecy regarding the last 10 popes, as well as those similar revelations given in various Marian apparitions. By these and other accounts, the current Pope, Francis, will be the final Roman pontiff in the tradition of the Catholic Church of Rome. One of those prognostications presents the actual context of when the current Pope would be forced to flee Rome in December when the Great Comet is seen in the daytime. One of the latest in the series of these Marian prophecies clearly indicates that huge changes are coming to planet Earth. Whenever these predictions veer into Earth change territory, they always speak of massive, unprecedented, and cataclysmic events, overtaking the entire planetary realm. No location is spared except those which are preordained as safe havens for the protected portion of humanity that is to be safeguarded. Recently, I published a video that included a podcast concerning the fiery comet known as the Red Ball of Redemption, a comet that would bring great destruction upon the Earth. This was known as the Bayside Prophecy. Even the third secret of Fatima is said to concern the end times, which is why it was never officially released by the Vatican. The primary agent of such massive global change is usually referred to as a shift, specifically an axis pole shift, where the Earth actually shifts on its axis by a number of degrees. An axis pole shift is the only planet-wide geophysical event which can generate so many predicted changes. The historical record, both geological and archaeological, is replete with hard evidence of periodic planetary catastrophes. Planet X, in fact, has experienced global landmass rearrangements at the closing of eras and the conclusion of epochs since the beginning of time. As we approach the current denouncement of the Age of Conflict, also known as the Iron Age, it is certain that Mother Earth will once again turn on her axis so that the old lands can be rejuvenated and refreshed, which is deemed a necessity, so that the new lands can emerge to sustain the new race of humanity is likewise an essential byproduct of axial pole shifts. Therefore, the real question is just what kind of celestial event would provide the requisite interplanetary dynamic to precipitate a shifting of the Earth on its axis. There can be only one possible scenario for such an event to occur, and that would have to be a celestial intruder of great order that would possess all of the right stuff to cause the Earth to literally roll over and stay there as the new normal. Hence, we see more of a logical explanation than ever afforded to the various schools of thought which promote a Planet X. As you can see here, the planet of the crossing has many different names given to it. All of these names have been provided as candidates for the heavenly body, which may be responsible for both past and future catastrophes here on Earth. That's not to say that there are not other diverse possibilities when considering the various apocalyptic scenarios which the planet has been proven to undergo. However, asteroids and large meteors, gamma bursts and supernovas each have their obvious deficiencies when trying to explain an event like a pole shift. Of all of the theories which abound, and there are many on the internet, the narrative surrounding Hercolubus seems to be the most plausible. It also appears to be the one which forms the basis for all the others. Even the Nibiru story and their Anunnaki travelers seem to have originated from the Hercolubus version of earth-shaking events. It's true the Sun has been going through some major changes over the past few decades. We wonder if its a new location in the galaxy of the galactic center is enough to bring about such a profound and fundamental transformation. We also wonder if there are other galactic happenings, both seen and unseen, which may be triggering the sustaining of the Sun's new behavior. As the Sun ages, it is quite possible that it is simply entering a new phase of existence. However, there does exist an overwhelming body of evidence which points directly to the influence of a sizable planetary sphere within the outer reaches of our solar system. This would also explain many of the other recent and radical changes undergone by all of the other planets in our solar system recently. Especially one with an immense gravitational field would be required for an axis shift to occur. Such a celestial body would also have to possess other extraordinary properties and unique features in order to effectuate a pole shift, as is often foretold.
The catastrophes described in ancient sources were traumatic experiences common to all mankind. Purged from conscious memory, these records are now interpreted as allegories, metaphors, and the trauma has been submerged in the unconscious. Collective amnesia. A revolutionary theory of the universe based on the records of the past has challenged the fundamental beliefs of modern science for more than 2 decades. Today, the unexpected findings of space explorations have confirmed many of the predictions of this theory. Mountains were born and mountains collapsed. Land and sea changed places. Great streams of lava flowed. The sea boiled and evaporated. Such were the scenes of unimaginable violence during the times of global catastrophe, as recorded by the ancients.
Here in the New York Herald Tribune, Explosion in Science, the artist's conception of what happened when the heavens burst. What happened during the 1500 BC upheaval, which we read about in the Bible as the exodus of the Israelites from Egypt, and the phenomena or upheaval that accompanied that. And this is the artist's conception of what happened in Palestine and Mexico and China. Lightning, meteorites being rained down as the comet's head came closer to the earth, followed by floods. Same in Mexico, where water swept over the entire land, great gigantic tides.
There were repeated changes in the Earth's orbit, in the lengths of day, the seasons, and the year. In these catastrophes, entire species of animals were annihilated. Others proliferated from wholesale mutations. Mankind was decimated. Civilizations destroyed.
So that now brings us to the question, what is causing the dramatic and meteoric changes throughout the solar system? The planets, all of them, have been experiencing unparalleled and dramatic transformation never seen or recorded before. I am going to show you some coherent examples of the changes now taking place within our solar system. The data has been compiled from various scientific institutions, including NASA. This information has been publicly available for nearly a decade and includes actual statistics regarding these changes. This is data that is considered to be only the tip of the iceberg when referring to the continued changes occurring to the planets within the solar system. The planets are undergoing variations in their atmosphere. For example, the Martian atmosphere is getting sizably thicker, and Earth's moon is growing an atmosphere. And according to Dr. Alexei Dmitry, there is a 6,000 kilometer deep layer of natrium that wasn't there previously. He says that we're having this kind of change in the upper levels of Earth's atmosphere, where oxyhydrogen gas is forming that wasn't there before. It simply did not exist in the quantity that it does now. It's not related to global warming, and it's not related to fluorocarbon emissions or any of that stuff. It's just showing up. Magnetic fields and brightness of the planets are also changing. The planets are experiencing sizable increases in their overall luminosity. Venus, for example, is showing us marked elevations in its overall brightness. Jupiter has such a high energetic charge now that there is actually a visible tube of ionizing radiation that has formed between it and its moon. You can actually see the luminous energy tube in photographs that have been taken recently. In addition, the magnetic field strength of each planet has also increased. Uranus and Neptune appear to have had recent pole shifts. When the Voyager 2 space probe flew past Uranus and Neptune, the apparent north and south magnetic poles were sizably offset from where the rotational pole was. In one case, it was 50 degrees off, and in the other case, the difference was around 40 degrees, both of which are pretty big changes. The overall changes could essentially be broken down into three categories: energy field changes, luminosity changes, and atmospheric changes. Global climate change is increasing and intensifying rapidly everywhere. These headlines tell the story much better than I can. The worldwide weather patterns have gone into a crash and burn mode, both literally and figuratively. Every region of the world has now experienced a periodic and profound departure from their traditional weather norms since records have been kept. Global climate change does not accurately describe the planetary predicament. An ongoing worldwide atmospheric apocalypse does, manifesting as localized weather cataclysms, as these headlines would seem to indicate. So, is it possible that the incoming comet planet has hyperdimensional qualities? Carlos Ferrada has stated that Hercolubus travels at 300 kilometers per second for half of its orbit. He emphasizes that this is 1/1000th of the speed of light, as this video clip indicates.
Entonces acá usted en su gráfico nos presenta lo que es la estrella muerta o el sol muerto. En ese sol muerto él gira.
Aquí a 92 kilómetros por segundo.
Entonces, además de esos 92 kilómetros por segundo, él tiene otra velocidad, que es la más aterradora, ¿verdad? Que es la que se mueve muy rápido.
Tiene 3 velocidades, hombre. Lo máximo lo tiene en la mitad de la órbita. A 300 kilómetros por segundo. O sea, 1/1000º de la velocidad de la luz.
Eso es rápido.
Therefore, we can only assume that this particular heavenly body is quite literally a heavenly body, one that obeys a set of laws that can neither be defined by quantum mechanics nor theory of relativity. For the uninitiated, the esoteric field of hyperdimensional physics is still emerging from its infancy. It does, however, provide a quasi-geophysical context in which a celestial body of extraordinary size, mass, and speed can behave as a comet planet. Hyperdimensional physics accommodates many other inexplicable aspects of the solar system and anomalies throughout the Milky Way galaxy, which have eluded sound scientific explanation for decades. Likewise, there are countless other galactic phenomena which the current astronomy and astrophysics paradigms do not sufficiently illuminate or support. In light of these and many other inconsistencies found throughout the tenuous teachings of the academic establishment, it must be noted that the conventional wisdom has been found wanting in this regard. The whole subject matter is simply too controversial for the establishment to take up in any factual or meaningful way, and so it shall remain until the end of days. The gifted visionary Samuel Weor, in what is referred to as the Aquarian message, stated the following: "An unusual event is going to accelerate the process of swift change to the axis of the planet Earth. I am referring to the planet Hercolubus. This planet is 6 times bigger than the planet Jupiter. The planet Hercolubus belongs to the distant solar system of Tylo. The solar system of Tylo is rapidly approaching our solar system, and Hercolubus is rapidly approaching Earth. Modern astronomers have before their sight the planet Hercolubus, or as it is known by modern science, the Barnard star. This planet is a powerful giant that will pass through an angle of our solar system. When this happens, the revolution of the axis of the planet Earth will accelerate violently. Then the final catastrophe will occur. Some scientists believe that they will be able to push this monstrous planet away with nuclear explosions, but this will be useless. It will be impossible to push this tremendous mass of a planet out of the way with mere nuclear bombs. This same planet brought Atlantis to an end. Before Atlantis existed, it annihilated the existence of another continent. We know very well that the continent of Mu, or Lemuria, sank within the waters of the boisterous Pacific Ocean after 10,000 years of earthquakes and incessant volcanic eruptions. So when will the final shift occur? There is only one answer to this question. Those who reside at the very peak of the pinnacle of the New World Order know the answer. They have all been there before. According to the Cosmic Convergence Research Group, when scientific knowledge and applied technology reach a critical level of advancement without being informed by spiritual truths and guided by moral authority, the current civilization will relinquish its right to continue as it is. It is really that simple. This statement also captures the essence of why the timing is so difficult for anyone to pin down. Because those who direct the most consequential and far-reaching scientific research experiments in the solar system know exactly what they are doing. Of course, the highest power controls all, so the actual moment of truth will come like a thief in the night, as it always does. Since Hercolubus can behave as a hyperdimensional entity, It exists outside of the normally perceived parameters of our universe. It is, however, extremely impressionable and responsive. Were it to receive the frequencies which indicated that the misguided scientists have really crossed the line, it might just show up on our doorstep tomorrow. However, there are many ways in which to send the final message. Whether it shows up in the form of a huge red planet, also known as the planet of the crossing, remains to be seen. What is of greater interest to those of us who have watched this drama unfold is exactly where in our solar system the curtain will go up. During previous epochs, the show always began with the crossing place, or the place of transition, as the Akkadian name of Nibiru means. Whether the final shift will be triggered by the winged disk is really anyone's guess. However, because there is no doubt that the future of humankind lies in the balance, as does the fate of planet Earth, we are compelled to point out the following. The solar system and Milky Way galaxy have an elegant order and beauty. The outcomes of runaway applied science and unchecked applied technology do not always support this established order. In fact, there are numerous covert programs such as HARP and concealed NASA initiatives as described in Dark Mission, which fly directly in the face of an orderly universe. There are other signs on Earth and omens in the heavens that something very big is around the corner. And that is the number of man-made catastrophes which are engineered wittingly or unwittingly. For example, each of the past 6 years have brought to the planet an extraordinary event of truly historic and monumental proportions, as shown in this slideshow sequence. What is important to understand about each of these events is that they are all ongoing. The people on the Gulf of Mexico coastline will verify this, as will the whole country of Japan. So will the residents of the Jersey Shore. Likewise, the entire United States is just waiting for the next debt default doomsday date, and the endless cycle continues. So what's the point? There is something much bigger going on in the background which compels the powerful elites to completely ignore the real solutions to these and many other urgently pressing matters. At the same time, whenever they do respond, they seem to do so in a manner that guarantees an exasperation of the problems which humanity faces. Another perfect example of this willful neglect and ineffective remediation is the proliferation of space junk, especially junk which is powered with nuclear energy. Can you imagine that stuff is sent up into space which produces nuclear byproducts and or radioactive wastes? For instance, in 2005, at least 13 nuclear reactor fuel cores, 8 thermoelectric generators, and 32 nuclear reactors were known to be in Earth orbits below 1700 km. So where's it all going to go when those various satellites and probes and space weapons decide to come back to planet Earth? The final point is that much of that space junk is serving a vital purpose in the minds of the government elites. Tracking brown dwarfs, comets, planetoids, asteroids, large meteors, and comet planets is certainly now a huge priority for them. Apparently, the dangers posed by the free fall of any of this nuclear-powered junk must not compare to the benefits which they are accruing in the meantime from their global Spacewatch program. Perhaps their completely cavalier attitude and reckless response to so many things is a reflection of what really does matter to them at this very late date. Who could deny that a Hercolobus would fit the profile of such a grave and momentous concern? We can only conclude that the rapid and relentless weaponization of space, which has occurred since the Reagan years, may be less about controlling the territory below and more about eliminating threats from above. And that the Star Wars program, also known as the Strategic Defense Initiative, was actually conceived in anticipation of a war in the heavens, or with unwelcomed celestial intruders. With all of the aforementioned changes happening right in our own backyard, is it any wonder global climate change has taken the world by storm? As for the true cause of such pervasive, profound, and permanent changes, a Hercolobus in our neighborhood appears to be a very realistic possibility. Quite frankly, it might be better if humankind assumed that it is as real as our highly esteemed astronomer Carlos Ferrata has described it. In this way, the community of nations would get down to the business of respecting our precious planet, not competing for its every resource. We are concerned that if a concerted effort is not made in earnest, with haste and in good faith, our future will be much less pleasant. Always the people of the world have the inherent power to positively affect all of the outcomes that I have referred to in this presentation. The more we resonate with reverence for our planet, the quicker the message can be delivered to our celestial neighbors that we have relented in our harmful behavior. If ever there was a time to unite around a single cause, this is it. Once we exceed the point of no return, what will come cannot be stopped, nor can the severity be alleviated once the key dominoes start to fall. It's now less than a minute to midnight. The government elites have proven time and again that it would rather take the path of least resistance. Doing nothing is certainly the best way to not alert the public about these eventualities. They also know that the die has been cast many decades ago, and that their predecessors chose to chart a course which would be more and more difficult to change with each passing day. However, there is no question that the collective will and predominant intention of the human race has great power. So what shall we do? Individually, we can remain centered, grounded, and focused on what is really important in each moment. If nothing else, each of us can go within to find our strength, our courage, and our resolve to make it through and out the other side, happy, healthy, and whole. Truly going within during these challenging times and meditating on the supreme consciousness will guide us in our moments of greatest need.
Good afternoon. This is Universal News Media. Today is March 3rd, 2018. Today we will see something that looks like a flying shoe. We will also see several large planets, moons, and eclipses. All of the images you are about to see were obtained within the last 4 days from the Federal Aviation weather cams scattered across Alaska and Canada. All videos are in time-lapse mode, with each frame equal to 10 minutes. Our first video came from the southeast-facing weather cam located in Say Key, British Columbia, in Canada. One of the eclipse concealment jets projects a large pink triangle onto a shoe-shaped object in the sky. It is being blurred by technology. The flashlight sun, explained in a minute, engulfs this object in glare, while the eclipse concealment jet swings around to line itself up with the object and the center of the flashlight sun. The flashlight sun is a very intense light source installed between the Earth and the sun, much closer to the Earth. Eclipsing planets pass in front of the real sun, but behind the flashlight sun, so that it's not obvious an eclipse is occurring. The eclipse concealment jet also projects a large triangle over the object being hidden as a further measure to obscure it. Here is a contrast-enhanced view of the object. The flashlight sun moves away, and another contrast view provides better detail. The blurring mechanism is used to hide two planets viewed from the southeast-facing weather cam located in Uranus, Alaska. There is one more planet above the one that the arrow was pointing to. They will both emerge once the flashlight sun has passed in front of them. The black dot in the center of the flashlight sun emits a black positioning indicator beam to the eclipse concealment equipment waiting for a signal. The eclipse concealment jet swings into view in the bottom right corner of the camera's screen, keeping in perfect alignment with the black dot and one of the planets for optimum concealment. Notice how terribly dark it is for midday. It is almost noon. Once past, the planets are then blurred. They then fade into transparency from the atmospheric chemicals. Our next planet is seen rolling across the sky from the east-facing weather cam located in Trading Bay, Alaska. The St. Michael weather cam caught this gigantic view of the sun. This is not the sun. It is the flashlight sun in an eclipse. Another function of the flashlight sun is to completely engulf a nearby celestial object in glare, rendering it non-viewable. The southeast-facing weather cam in Soldotna, Alaska, caught this small moon just emerging from the flashlight sun's enormous glare. A striped planet also comes into view. Thus, the flashlight sun emits a black positioning indicator beam to the eclipse concealment jets waiting for a signal. In response, a reflection of the concealment jet is viewed in the lower right corner of the screen, keeping in perfect alignment with the eclipsing planet and the black dot for optimum concealment. Both planets fade into transparency from the atmospheric chemicals. The southwest-facing weather cam in Palmer, Alaska, caught a sunset already taking place beneath the real sun, which is still up in the sky. The flashlight sun takes on a very contorted shape as it attempts to completely engulf this celestial object in glare in order to obscure it from view. Reflections of the concealment jet are visible. These objects are part of an approaching celestial system. Many people ask when this system will make its closest pass to our Earth. A general indication of time is provided in the following pages of text. Please don't forget to like this video and subscribe.